Okay, so let me just check whether it is live. So 8:58, and today's day is 16th of August. So welcome to my public community service. And we don't want to drag very long tonight, because tonight the topic is about left brain coaches. Okay, so I don't know how many people will be showing up. Don't worry. As usual, if you're watching replay, hashtag replay, and you know as well as I do that you have up until Tuesday at 12 p.m. Singapore time to catch up with this Facebook Live. Alright, so we talk about emotional intelligence. The reason why I'm starting this topic for tonight is, I've been talking about coaching for freaking 1.5 months. And last week we talked about coaches versus coaching business, and I got people who are actually a bit unhappy. When I say unhappy, it means that they are not very agreeable to what I said, and they said nothing wrong with that. I mean, tonight I'm not going to debate that topic. I've already spent enough time talking about being a coach requires skill set of a coach. However, the biggest problem I see is many coaches, when they start new, they lack the marketing skill, the sales skill to be able to acquire clients. So, which is what I said, it's very important for every single business. Like restaurant owners may not need to know how to cook, yet it has to know certain systems to be in place in order to be able to run a restaurant as a business. So you must have systems. So this is for those who actually missed last week Facebook Live. The gist of that is that you must have certain systems, because eventually the dream of every solopreneur is to be able to leave the what they are doing existingly, and to be able to get themselves out. So we say work on business versus working in the business. A solopreneur is always the one trading time for money working in the business, whereas for a business owner, we say that you scale the business so that you have systems in place, you have coaches helping you, so that you are able to run this as a business, truly impact more lives of people without you being the one and only one in the coaching, doing the coaching. Okay, so thank you for dropping by. For those who are staying, watching live, and let me see what's going on. If you are here, if you are hanging out, if you are watching live, let me know where you hang out from. And I do see a couple of you actually are here. I see thumbs up here, by the way, so thank you for watching. And then now let's talk about today's topic. Today's topic is very interesting because it is emotional intelligence, EQ. So let's start talking about the concept of EQ. Good news, bad news. Good news is that EQ is not born with you. EQ is something you can learn, and it's unlike IQ, which is born with you. I mean, if you are born on high IQ, hi Kim, welcome. So if you are born with high IQ, yes, you will be by default maybe a member of Mensa. It's okay. I'm not. My IQ is just average. But the key thing is that as a coach, it is more important to be able to function with higher EQ. So I started with this topic tonight with this anticipation that, because from my circle I noticed that the biggest problem that I work with people who are coaches in my circle, so it may not be your circle but in my circle, is that they find it very hard to connect with people. I also scratching my head. What do you mean by very hard to connect with people? And I realized that these coaches are like me many years ago. So I started my coaching journey back in 2008. And the very thing that I see is that Adam is also watching. Oh, hi. Hi, Adam. Hi. The thing about the left brain coaches that I know is they like to think. It's very hard for them to connect. So it is actually my story back then. My story back in 2008, when I literally don't know how to coach. Why? Because the problem of me being left brain is a lot of times I have to focus on myself. I need to speak logics, facts. When it comes to connecting with people, it is tough. So there is a saying at the very beginning that most coaches actually decide to become coaches because they love to connect with people, they love to help people. So if you are like in our banco system, if you are talking about a nurturing personality, like by default, most coaches I know are here. nurturing personality because they just love helping people. And they have little or few problems like me connecting with people. So back then, the question I have is that how do I connect with people? Like this is a very common question for the left brainers. Like how? What are the steps involved in connecting with people? Like you find that weird, please comment on the chat. If you find that question is weird, I just want you to understand that the left brain dominant, unfortunately, they need to analyze the way in which they are able to connect with people. What are the steps involved? Oh, hi Stephanie, and thank you for joining me as usual. I want to acknowledge also Clement and Kim from Melbourne, Australia, and who are watching this. So right now on the live there are 10 people. So thank you for supporting. And coming back, like I said, most people from the coach, Kim said I also have this problem. So most people who are nurturing by default, they will find that it is easier to connect. It's like their strength, it is their cup of tea, and the question is that what are the steps involved? So 2 weeks ago, I talked about how to build rapport. To answer the question how, what are the steps involved in connecting with people, I talked about the 4 pillars of coaching. So that happened 2 weeks ago. And tonight, I want to talk about emotional intelligence. Okay, so EQ is a very important part of this coaching business. And I said coaching business, not coaches. Okay, coaching and coaching businesses are 2 different things. Although they are related, they are different. And in order to function as an effective coach, running a coaching business. So notice that I'm saying again, just take note what I said. In order to function as a coach, running a coaching business, EQ is very important. So let's start with the conversation of what is EQ. So EQ, or also known as emotional intelligence, it was actually a very powerful definition that I got. And this definition, let me just make sure I got the right person on board. It is from Goleman, David Goleman, Goleman. David Goleman in 2012, he wrote a paper, and this is the definition of emotional intelligence. That is ability to optimize personal and professional relationships based on, I'm not done yet, switch. Self-regulation, internal motivation, the word in blue color, empathy, self-awareness, and social skill. This is what we call emotional intelligence. So for those who are new to this, like Cindy said, it's an interesting topic. It is, because emotional intelligence is the ability to optimize your personal and professional relationships based on these 5 elements. So David Goleman, 2012, he wrote this paper. The 5 elements are self-regulation, internal motivation, empathy, self-awareness, and social skill. So many times when you ask, like my parents, my wife said, hey Jack, you have no EQ. I say, what do you mean by no EQ? You don't have this social awareness. And you notice one thing, social awareness, which means social skill, is just one of the 5 elements. So you think that, oh my God, if I am able to acquire social skill, I will be able to raise my emotional intelligence. This is good news, by the way. Why? Because it is one of the 5 elements. You need to have these other 4: self-regulations, internal motivations, empathy, self-awareness. I'm repeating myself because how many of you actually find that this definition is pretty interesting? It might be new to some of you, I don't know. Like when I look at emotional intelligence, I thought that, oh, it means I need to have my high EQ by being able to have more social skill, social awareness, and that is what I mean by high EQ. And the thing that I realized is not really true, because the definition actually has more than just social skill. So let's start with this concept called self-awareness. In the first place, the fact that people who are left brain dominant, who are coaches, find that it's difficult to connect with people is a good thing, because that is what we call self-awareness. If I know I have difficulty in connecting with people, that is a self-awareness issue. Every single change comes from this word, awareness. This is key. So good news for those who ask the question, which is why I'm running this topic for tonight. If you are having difficulty, it is a good thing to know that you have a chance to solve it. You don't know what you don't know. So imagine people who are left-wing dominant and they are doing coaching and they don't even know they cannot connect with people, then of course they would not even explore this topic for tonight. Does that make sense? Comment on the chat if it makes sense to you. Alright, so then let's talk about other things. What is internal motivation? Internal motivation. Again, I have a very huge debate about this word internal motivation. Why? With another word called external motivation. So some people would like to call this extrinsic versus external. Intrinsic, external. So motivation is something that I believe comes from within. And this I like to quote from one of my mentors, Dan Locke. He said that motivation comes from within. If somebody push you to do something and you said you are motivated because of somebody's action, you are not motivated by that person. You are just inspired by the person. So there is a huge difference between the word inspiration and motivation. There's, to me, no such thing called external motivation. Some people might inspire you to do something. At the end of the day, if you don't have that motivation to do it, you will still not do it. How many of you agree? Like if you attend a course and you see that successful students on stage, wow, as a result of learning from the teacher, had made millions of dollars, and you want to be like that person on stage, and you decide to go to the back and sign up for the course. Well, you're inspired by the person, by the teacher, students to sign up for the course. How many of you actually learn that after you have signed up the course, you still have to do the work? And the question is that where do you find the motivation to do the work? So this is what we call internal motivation, and that's why this word is big. And I have a huge debate, as always, with people who have different opinion or definition of motivation. And my definition of motivation, actually I learned from Dan Locke, is that number one, you've got to be clear absolutely what you want. The problem is that many people actually don't know what they want. And that's why this problem about motivation happens. If you don't know what you want, then you will not be able to generate internally the motivation that helps you to do the work. And the second thing is that even though you know what you want, is that truly what you want? You see, I've got two things here. Some people don't know what they want. Number two, some people pretend they know what they want. Oh, by the way, Eric is here. Eric is actually celebrating a birthday, so I'm very happy that Eric, today's birthday, he's actually watching the Facebook Live. So happy birthday, Eric. So coming back, the intrinsic motivation. So if you don't know what you want, versus you think you know what you want, but is that truly what you want? Two different questions. They are related. So that's why intrinsic motivation becomes so hard to be self-initiated, self-generated. The thing is that why would people go for Tony Robbins UPW virtual? And by the way, Tony Robbins is running another UPW virtual. I always said that there's nothing wrong for people to go to this kind of motivation workshop. To me, there's not motivation. They are just going to get the external inspiration. Because what happens is that after the 4 days or 3 days event, you still have to come back to the real world, and you have to find your motivation from within to do the work. The question is that if you know what you want, and you truly understand why you want what you want, I will say it one more time. If you truly understand what you want, and why do you want what you want, you don't need Tony Robbins. That's why I'm not a big fan of Tony Robbins. I think at this stage of my life, I'm very happy to say publicly that I'm not a Tony Robbins fan. I don't need Tony Robbins to motivate me. And sometimes I actually say this in my own class, but for the very first time, I'm mentioning this. I may piss off other event organizers, and you know who is organizing this. But the problem is that I don't really care now. Why? Because in my Facebook Live, I have every single freedom to express what I want. If you disagree with me, if you think Tony is doing well, you need Tony Robbins by all means. Like I said, it's just a different definition of motivation versus the inspiration. Some people on my TikTok channel actually said that, Jack, you do your TikTok video, and that is actually motivates me to take action. I was pretty inspired with the young kids watching my TikTok channel, saying that because they watch my daily videos, they are learning something and at the same time they are motivated. But I did actually say this to one of the viewers and say I didn't motivate you. I may have inspired you to take some action. At the end of the day, who is going to be responsible for taking action? It's still you, not me. I'm not responsible for you taking action. By the way, it's not me, right? Hi Aaron, yes, so get you Jack. Thank you. All right, so another element, we've seen that we have talked about self-awareness, internal motivation, and the word I purposely put in blue color, empathy. Empathy is basically saying to you that you are who you are. Everybody agrees, right? You are who you are. You are born like this. So I'm putting myself, wearing my specs this way because I'm born with this pair of lenses. So this is how I see the world. Okay? However, chances are you may have your own perspective and you're not aware of how other people's perspectives will be. So empathy, basically the simple definition of empathy is to put another pair from another person, put the perspective from another person, put it and see why the person do this, why the person think this way or feel this way. So you're putting yourself into the shoes of another person and think and feel like the other person. And that is what we call empathy. So in neuro-linguistic programming, if you understand the concept called perceptual positioning, it's essentially saying that you are taking your first position into a second position. And perhaps you may even take the third position, or some of you may know there's such a thing called the fourth position, or we call the God position. So think from an issue, from that person's perspective, from other people's perspective, and that's what we call empathy. Primarily second position, think from the other person's perspective. The question I know is that when it comes to our banco system, if you it happens to be knowledge personality, okay, the color is not so obvious, it's really green color, from the screen is green color, and then this is the blue color, or this sharper is the blueprint personality. They actually think from themselves, because to them they are thinking from themselves. And by the way, from my experience, the action personality also think from themselves. So that's why in terms of empathy, if you say that, well, the action personality, the blueprint personality, and the knowledge personality have less or lower empathy, I would say so. In fact, I actually dare to say, because from a knowledge perspective, I would say that knowledge personality tends to have the lowest. From my experience, I make a very general statement. I'm not saying that it is true all the time. Just from my experience, especially speaking for myself, low EQ is what you can expect from a knowledge personality, which is the reason why when it comes to relationship, the knowledge personality have a little bit of the challenge, because for them, they like to isolate themselves. They like to seclude or to hide at the corner, because to them social distancing is the name of the game. So right now, social distancing, who is the biggest beneficiary in terms of the four banco personality? It has to be knowledge personality, because in the first place, they don't like to connect with people. They don't like to gather with other people. They like to isolate themselves. Social distancing. They have been practicing social distancing even before COVID-19. So is there anything wrong with the knowledge personality? As we learn in banco, empathy is the word that we say we are not here to judge another person's behavior. So if this is the first time you're hearing me talking about banco, all I want you to understand is that for banco, we have got four different types of personality: the blueprint, the action, the nurturing, and knowledge. Four personalities. Each of you, me also included, have all four personalities. The question is that some of us have a higher knowledge, like myself. Some of you may have higher nurturing. Some of you may have higher action. And that's how our behaviors can be different. There's nothing wrong with that. Okay? The question is, how would you see if somebody behaves differently? Would you judge? Would you actually curse? Would you scold the person? Would you pass on any unfair judgment? Or worse, ridicule the person? So once you understand banko, it's not about judging the other person. Like the typical story that we said, well, when it comes to COVID-19, when Singapore announced the orange DOSCON orange, people went all the way to snatch the toilet paper. And then we got people starting to say, hey, these people are crazy. Why do you want to go to supermarket to snatch all the toilet paper? That is insane. So the thing is, you don't. Because for them, some of them, the blueprint is triggered. The fear is triggered. And that's why the only response to the fear mode is to get something that is called security. And if you have watched my Facebook Live back in April and May, I talk about there's research. So I'm not going to spend time talking about this, but you can actually go to do research. There are some research papers talking about why people go to supermarkets to snatch toilet paper. And it's pretty interesting research. You need to go and check it out. And I'm not going to repeat myself. I've done this in April and May Facebook Live. So I just want to let everybody know that empathy is a very, very big word. Put yourself into another person's shoes. The question is, how do you do that? Okay? So without further ado, let me just talk about, and Angela, thank you for doing the note taking for tonight, and appreciate your help. Okay, so let's talk about why is EQ important. So let's think about it. In a coaching scenario, if you are not able to connect with your coachee, how are you going to do the coaching? Many times, new coaches, especially left brain dominant, tonight I like to use this phrase called left brain dominant coaches. Okay, because left brain love to think over feeling. So in terms of connection, it is a bit of the disadvantage to start with. Because what happens is that I notice quite a lot of left brain dominant coaches, they like to think about what is the next question they are going to ask the coachee. And some of them have even prepared a list of questions that are ready to ask the coachee. It's like preparation is always something that's important. Instead of listening with intent, listening from the heart, they like to prepare in advance. It's like the sales script. I have a list of questions ready to fire at the coachee. The thing is that the feedback I got is, number one, I don't find that the template is useful because somehow the coaching session turns out very differently from what I have originally expected. How many of you know what I'm talking about? Like you plan the coaching session is going to be this way, this way, this way, this way. Somehow the conversation changed completely. And whatever you prepare on the piece of paper, so-called the template, you didn't use it at all. So again, as an example, like this afternoon I've done the coaching. The session is all about planning. It's about planning for time. And what happened is that, as usual, I don't have any pieces of paper. I don't have any question. I know my end game. My end game are objective. I know who am I speaking with, and I know what are the questions my coachee will be asking. But I don't have any questions for him. Why? Because coaching is a very important skill set whereby you listen, you ask questions, you listen, you ask questions. But you are not asking questions based on the piece of paper. You are asking based on what you have heard. I should have said based on what you have listened. Okay? So having that script in front of you is not going to help you. And we can always say that, well, in order to connect with the other person, you need to listen. But the worry about me as a new coach or a left brain dominant coach is that I may not have listened. I may not have caught what the coachee has said. And therefore, maybe the coachee, can you please slow down, let me jot down some of the keywords, and by that, you break the rapport, you break the connection with the coachee. So to me, why is having EQ very important is because that will help you raise or increase or improve or enhance your listening skill. The magic formula about improving your next listening skill is really pay attention to what your coachee says, and that is already connecting with the coachee. And by doing this, you are actually connecting with the person without you knowing. And that is what I said. Why is that important? Because that is how coaches are able to ask questions. Remember this, coaches are not here giving advice. Yesterday, Kenneth Chu, my partner, actually put on Facebook something about some coaches actually render advice. So if you happen to come across with coaches who are rendering advice, they are actually functioning another skill, and the skill is called mentoring. Notice one thing, mentorship consists of coaching and consulting. That's why when I'm a mentor, I'm not only asking questions, I'm also giving advice. But I'm very clear with my identity. My identity is a mentor. If I'm not a mentor, if I'm just purely doing coaching, I will not give advice. Or even though I'm giving advice, I'm about to give advice, I will turn the advice into question and let the coachee identify and get their own answer. How many of you know what I'm talking about? Okay, so understand one thing, mentorship consists of consulting, which means giving advice, and coaching. So it's a higher level ascension in terms of the ascension path. It is of higher level than coaching. Coaching is a bit lower because coaching is just asking questions. Coaches never give advice. So that was another interesting issue that I addressed 2 weeks ago in my Facebook, on my Facebook Live. So if you are coaches, understand that you don't give advice unless you're actually functioning as a mentor. So your identity has to be very clear. And there are other issues popping up around surrounding with that. I'm not going to elaborate. 2 weeks ago my Facebook Live addressed this. So I'm just going straight to this question. What is low EQ? Okay, this is pretty interesting. What is low EQ? So this is the definition I got from a piece of article from a Very Well Mind. So tonight, this part of what I'm doing, I want to acknowledge the source. I actually came across with a very nice piece of article. What we call is from Very Well Mind, and this article talking about what is low EQ. So I kind of like this because it is very interesting to learn what is low EQ. It's inability to accurately perceive emotions. So it's not you understand how the other person thinks, it's understand how the other person feel. Okay, emotion on yourself or others, and what's the word, and use that info to guide you. So that is the inability to accurately perceive emotion. So question, just imagine Tom and Mary are talking to each other. Tom has low EQ. Mary was very angry, and Tom says, I don't see you are angry. I don't think you are angry. And obviously Tom doesn't feel Mary angry. So that is the thing. Is that my wife used to in the past before Banco like to tell me, you don't get what I'm saying to you. I'm angry, but you cannot feel it. I say, feel? How do you feel it? I don't know how to feel. And that is a very quite interesting question from the left brain, because left brain use thinking over feeling, right? So I don't see you angry. I cannot feel you're angry. I think you're angry, but I'm not so sure. Let me process and understand your emotion. It's pretty interesting talk, right? So that's why when it comes to a nurturing personality versus a knowledge personality, what happened is that you got this argument. He said that I don't see you are angry, and you cannot read my face, man. I'm very angry. You don't feel anything. I say, no, I don't. What? F you. Like tsunami effect of the nurturing. If you are annoying the nurturing, they are nice people on the planet. However, if it comes to the extreme, that becomes a tsunami. So what happens is that's what the N and K's dynamic. I don't see you're angry. The nurturing says you don't feel that I'm angry, man. You cannot feel it, man. And say, no, I don't. So that's one issue about low EQ. Very important. How many of you actually understand there are people around you? I won't say you are. I'm not here putting people down. I'm just saying that how many people here may be aware there are people around you who have low EQ. Is it because of rationale? No, it's not. It's just that this is the knowledge personality is born like this. So it's like your Da Vinci Code. When you are born, you go to the DNA bank So this is a story like sometimes you see in the movie. So Stephanie answer the question is, imagine you're about to come out to the world, but before that there's one step involved. You need to go to the DNA bank to get the code. So somehow you pick this code and you come out to the world with knowledge, personality, dominant. And as a result, this is how you are, this is who you are, this is how you're born, like that. Nothing wrong, because you cannot blame. This is the way you were born. The thing is this, the way to think, the way they structure their thoughts is very one way. When it comes to feeling, one way, feeling is already different. So I know that when I, for example, before I am more aware of higher EQ, I won't say I have high EQ, I just say that I have higher EQ than a decade ago. What I learned is that I need to pay attention to understand how the other person feels. And how do I know? Can see the face, notice the word they use, or the body language. Every single piece will count. Imagine when somebody is angry. Do you ever see someone angry when you have a smiley face? I'm angry, I'm angry, I'm angry. It cannot. Now when someone is smiling, that cannot be anger. That can never have anger. So this is something I pick up as and when I learn something about the emotion. And I went for by the way, in case somebody like you who don't know me well, I'm a certified hypnotherapist from National Guild of Hypnotherapy, NGH. I have been a member in NGH since 2014. And during my hypnotherapy certification course, I learned that emotion can all be defined. So I started off with learning the definition of emotion. And that was for me from a knowledge personality. You can see that, wow, you mean definition, you mean emotion can be defined? Yep, emotion can be defined. Anger is all about unfairness. Sadness is all about someone has lost something big or someone big, very important. Every single emotion, from my perspective, can be defined. So that's how I see the world. I see the person is having this particular feeling. The first thing I ask myself is that what kind of feeling do I get from this person? And then I put that feeling into the definition to come up with my conclusion. You see that even though I have higher EQ, my process of analyzing the feeling, I use the word analyzing, which sounds very, very unnatural for people who are operating based on nurturing. They say, how can you do all this analysis? I say, yup, because the knowledge personality will do this. At least this is how I do this. I will fit the feeling into the definition I know, and then I conclude, oh, she is angry. That's me. Okay, I learned how to do it my way. It works for me, so it's okay. As long as it works for me, I don't care, right? So back to the question. So is it possible to start feeling, to learn how to feel? Yes, you can. But the challenge for the left-brain dominant cultures is because here is what they are natural. They like to process information. As a result, to ask them to exercise their feeling can be tough. So don't force someone when the modality of learning is actually not feeling, but actually about seeing, about thinking. If the modality is here, the learning preference is here, don't force any other people. So if definitely want to get the book, Secret Language of Feeling, SLOF, Secret Language of Feelings, okay, is by Calbanyan, CALBANYAN, Secret Language of Feeling, SLOF. You may want to buy the book because I actually get some of the left brain dominant coaches to read the book to understand these definitions of emotion and use that. Okay, so Jun saying is use definition by others to learn how to feel. Yep, this is knowledge personality. It's weird, but this is how I teach the knowledge personality to understand how to feel with or feel for other people. It sounds strange, I know. For the nurturing personality, it is strange, but understand this is the way I learn. Okay, so what are the signs of low emotional intelligence? Okay. So I want to actually start with point A tonight. And I'll give you the solution how to improve, increase, and enhance your emotional intelligence. Okay? So I give you the point A reference first. So there are altogether 8 signs of low EQ. Okay, you may want to just take picture, or if you're watching replay, you may want to just do a screenshot of that, because I'm not going to give you any notes. Number 1, they always have to be right. Sounds like knowledge personality. So if your banco happen to be like me, knowledge first. Knowledge is the highest. Personality wise, knowledge always have to be right. When they make the buying decision, for example, knowledge personality wants him or her to be right. That's why by default, knowledge personality has low EQ. That is how I link the both together. So what is that about? So let's talk about this. So it says that you may know someone who always seems to get into arguments with others. Okay, so friends, family, co-workers, and even random strangers may find themselves embroiled in dispute with arguments. So how many of you are sick and tired of arguments? And on the other side of the coin, how many of you love to argue? Yet when I was 16 years old, I aspired to be lawyers. That's how I became a lawyer. The reason why I decided to go to law school is because I love to argue. I love to be right. I love to be argued. So at 16, I didn't know what was banco. That was how many years ago. So that's it. So I will win at all costs and find it impossible to simplify the agree to disagree. That's the reason why in coaching, one of the key words you may want to write this down is that we never disagree with our clients. We never disagree with our clients. So the solution for this, I always need to be right, is that there could be differences in opinions, okay, in point of views or POV. You can learn to agree to disagree. There are 2 ways to look at this. One is agreement frame, to agree. The other one is to agree to disagree. I learned this in coaching. Agree to disagree is how I live my life in the coaching world. Very important. And then this to me is very, very important piece to understand. Got it? So number 1, low EQ, one of the examples is they always have to be right. Okay, number 2, they are oblivious to other people's feeling. In case you don't know the word oblivious, just replace the word as they are not aware of other people's feeling. Seems like me also. Without the ability to be aware of other people's feeling because they think from themselves. So obviously, the knowledge personality is another potential candidate or suspect of low EQ. Okay? But at the same time, we have got this blueprint personality. The blueprint personality also look at facts, also look at information data. So if they are not aware of other people's feeling, it's because their focus is on the left brain things, the data, the facts, the statistics. Okay? So suspect of this low EQ would be the blueprint and the knowledge, from my perspective. So it says that many people with low EQ are not aware of other people's feeling. They might be genuinely surprised that their partner is angry at them or their co-worker don't like them. How many of you have watched TV shows or some movies whereby this actor said that, I don't know, all my co-workers don't like me. I thought they loved me, they like me, they trust me. And all the co-workers gather in the corner and said, you know, that guy, hate him so much, don't like him. It's like, obviously, it's called not being able to aware of other people's feelings. So yep, that is another sign of low EQ. Okay, so let me see, where are we doing? Number 3, are you ready for number 3? That is, they behave insensitively. Suspect. Knowledge personality again. Blueprint. Blunt. Insensitive to other people's feeling. They have to be right. They don't care how you feel. So these are the two suspects. How many of you realize that tonight is pretty interesting? Because we always talk about the left brain dominant coaches. And by the way, who are the left brain dominant coaches? The blueprint and knowledge. It's very rare from my perspective to see a blueprint knowledge personality came to the world to coach. And most of the time, coaches are nurturing. That's what I know. A lot of my coaches in my coaching community, in fact 65 to 70% are nurturing. Okay, I'm the only one with these two and have been coaching since 2008. So how many of you realize that it's not easy for me to turn to an effective coach where my original style is blueprint and knowledge. So this topic is actually like a debrief of my 12 years of experience, if you like. So they behave insensitively. People with low EQ don't know the right thing to say. How many of you know what I'm talking about? Don't know the right thing to say. Because they cannot read the other person's mind or the feeling at that point in time. They fail to comprehend appropriately. Maybe the timing is wrong. Maybe the choice of words are wrong. I'm laughing at myself, honestly, because that is really about me. Okay, they might say something insensitive at the funeral, but they don't mean it. Like they have good heart, but they just anyhow said the word inappropriately. They may just joke about it, but no one actually appreciate. I say, hello, in that context, do you have any social awareness that that's inappropriate to say these words during to crack a joke in the funeral? Some people with low EQ actually will say that I'm not aware. I actually don't know. I'm sorry. That's the thing. So the challenge is that they have difficulty in understanding the emotion of other people. They have difficulty. So it's not their fault. It's not what they are. They do it intentionally. They just have difficulty in understanding the emotions of other people. So they cannot read, they cannot interpret and give the other person the appropriate response. So that is commonly known as lack of social skill. Because the society has defined someone with high social skill, be a person who is able to read the situation, who is actually knowing how to interpret from different perspectives, as a result, knowing how to respond. People who are special needs, who have Asperger's, ADHD, have low EQ as well, because they cannot just read the cue of other people. So it's not just blueprint and knowledge. Children with special needs. So understand this, if you're parents, if you find that your kids have challenge in reading the cue or the situation, again, it's just explained by the fact that they have low EQ. So you need some special treatment, not mentally. Okay, this is not mental disease, by the way. All I'm saying is that they need some training to get them up to the speed of raising their EQ. And a lot of times, these kind of therapy sessions that I'm aware that what happens is that the therapist actually will give scenarios. It's like me learning the definition of emotions. The more scenarios I come across, the more I'm able to interpret the situation. So as a result, that's how I learn, by going through many scenarios. Okay, so this is number 3. Number 4, what is that? Number 4, this one, responsibility. They blame others for their problems. They won't say that this is their fault. They blame other people. So what does it mean? It means that it says the one thing a person with low EQ won't do is to hold themselves accountable for their actions. So I want you to be aware of you and people around you. How many people around you have low EQ in that respect, by saying that it's not my fault, it's everybody's fault? Think about it. So oblivious or inaccurately praising empathy, can it be said to be insensitive? Cindy, yep, perhaps. Again, come from the knowledge personality, what is the definition of empathy? What is the definition of being insensitive? So I may say that, yep, it is, because empathy is defined from my definition purpose that one is able to read the cue or take the perspective of another person. So if I'm able to take the perspective of another person, obviously I'm aware, so it's not oblivious. It's not definitely oblivious. Then whether it's accurately or not, that one I may have a question mark. Why? Because I may take the perspective of another person, but it doesn't mean that this is accurate. Okay, I still may have to learn. So I would say this is oblivious, but accuracy, I'm putting a question mark for that to answer your question. Thank you for your question and keep it coming. So this one about blaming other people, like we say that why do you blame other people except yourself? Why don't you take responsibility? In fact, in the seminar industry, it shows that many people have low EQ. If that's the case, why? Because high EQ means that I will be socially responsible for my action, for my words, for whatever I said. I'm responsible. I won't blame other people. I will put myself on the line and hold myself to be held accountable by other people. So one sign of high EQ is, are you willing to be responsible for your words, for your action? Are you willing to be held accountable? And just incidentally, 2 days ago on my TikTok, I talked about the differences between accountability and responsibility. And there's a difference between these two words. So if you're interested, go to my TikTok and check it out. I'm not going to repeat here. Otherwise, this Facebook Live will become another 2 hours. Coming to number 5, let me just go back. Just 4 more to go. They have poor, the word is coping, mind my word here, coping skills. They have poor coping skills. This is number 5. So what do I mean by that? So it is what we call an indicator of low EQ, by the way. Strong emotions, whether their own or other people's, are difficult to comprehend for those with low EQ. So these individuals will often walk away from these scenarios to avoid having to deal with the emotional fallout. Question: how many of you notice that when there's a drama, you tend to avoid it by going to the opposite direction? You do not want to be involved. Again, the suspect will be blueprint and knowledge. I don't want to enter into this scenario. I don't want to be in that drama moment. This nurturing personality would come into the situation and say, what can I do? Emotion high, what can I do? Whereas the blueprint personality and the knowledge personality say, no, I don't want this drama. You know what? I cannot deal with this anyway. Like if someone cry like hell, what can I do? Let her cry. The best is that just stand outside, or just go away and let the situation handled by some other people. The question is that at times, you may not have the luxury of other people to help you to deal with that scenario. Then are you saying to yourself that I will not help? Or I will say I'll find another means to help that person? Your choice, your call, I don't know. Very, very tough. Okay, avoidance is quickest business response to conflict. Yep, thank you, Deborah. And by the way, good morning to you, Deborah. Thank you for checking out. Okay, we are into number what? Number 5. Let's check my notes. Number 5. So number 6, they have emotional outburst. People with low EQ, another sign is they have low emotional outburst. So it's the ability to regulate the emotion. So I can recall my time, like Melissa will relate to me, because the left brain tonight, I think a lot of left brainers will resonate with me. If you are left brain, give me a L on the chat and let us know this is what I have been doing for the whole day, for the whole Facebook Live, because the left brainers will relate to me. Okay, so they have emotional outbursts. So what exactly it means? Let me change my reading glass so I can see my notes properly. Okay, so it says that people with low EQ typically will struggle to understand and control the emotion. Okay, so left brainers, how many of you have this difficulty? Hands up. I'll be the first one first. Okay, me. Okay, they may lash out reactively without understanding what they are really feeling or why they are so upset. I don't know. A person with lack EQ might also have unexpected emotional outbursts that seems to be over-exaggerated, uncontrollable, and overblown. Even it's a small thing, it becomes very big. That can last for hours or days or weeks. See, my left brainers, now my left brain dominant folks are here saying, how many of you agree with what I've said so far? Six signs only. Like, how many of you realize that I'm actually talking to all of you? So this is the good news. The good news is that even though you are left brain dominant, it doesn't mean you cannot be a coach. I want to create this awareness that coaching are not dominated by the right brain dominant people or primarily the nurturing personality. A person with blueprint and knowledge, personality, dominant, can be a coach. I'm actually the example. How can I sustain my coaching career for 12 years? Be able to do and help thousands of people. Even though these are my true cards. This is what I say, learning to raise your EQ is very important. So right now, in case you just joined, you realize why we are talking about low EQ, the signs of low EQ. We need to know our point A so that we are able to move to the point B. So these are the signs. So number seven is they struggle with relationship. Oh my God. Left brain dominant people. How many of you have this as one of the most important one of all examples I've shown? I have not even shown you number 8, but this is the big one. Difficulty with relationships. Why? It's something that we are not comfortable with. But coaching is about relationship, isn't it? Coaching is about working with your client, isn't it? The question is, how do you work on your coaching if you are struggling with your relationship? So we will talk about the solution later, okay? So he says that people with low EQ often have very few close friends. Like the Chinese way saying is that my friends are all here, can be counted using my one hand. How many of you can relate to this? Like, we don't have a lot of friends. I don't know about you guys. So I don't have a lot of very close friends. I have a lot of friends. I've just removed 700 people on my Facebook as of today. Not 500. 500 is what I did yesterday. I just removed 700 because I don't need so many people on my Facebook. Okay, that is something that I do. As a knowledge personality, I cut relationship. Because people who I don't think I will be able to work with, or I don't see there as any engagement, I just cut away. I'm happy to stay with people who engage with me. And apparently that might be a good Facebook strategy. I don't know. I just cut off 700 people on my Facebook account as of now, somehow. This is your husband. Okay, thank you, Deborah. I'll just laugh here because that is about me. So what happens is that close friendship requires a mutual give and take. Agree? Mutual give and take. Sharing of emotions. Who is the best person? Who is the best personality dealing with this? Hold on. Maybe not. That is what we call, there must be a balance. When someone exercises too much of this nurturing personality, the person may become needy and people will walk away. So they might be good in dealing with relationship, but there's one thing we always remember, is called the balance. Because when the nurturing personality stretch too much and too far, what happens is that the other people may feel that, well, this is needy, I better run away. Like, I do have vibes of people who are needy. I can feel it. I learn how to feel. There's some what I would call that there's some very weird wind blowing at me and say that, please Jack, walk, run, do whatever it takes because that person is coming. So being needy is overuse of the nurturing personality. Agree? Thank you, Winnie. Yep, yes, true for nurturing. So there is always a balance. So for this low EQ, some people thought that, why Jack, you have been showing the blueprint and the knowledge, like you hardly show the action and nurturing. for this one, I would say that all four can be a struggle with relationship. Like logically, yes, these two will be the first two suspects. But one becomes so needy, one becomes so arrogant. Because action personality talk about what? Always me, I'm the best. So in other words, you might be putting another person down. So relationship wise, may have a problem. So I would say that for struggling relationship, is actually all four personalities could struggle with relationship. Okay, this would be all four. Okay, so let's see. They turn conversations towards themselves. So this is why I said being a coach, you ask questions, you listen, and be interested, not interesting. So they turn conversation towards themselves because the focus is now on me. Logical, right? For the blueprints and knowledge. Logically at me now because I focus on myself, and at the same time, emotionally unintelligent people tend to dominate the conversation. Because what happened? I want to be right. I want to be precise. I want to focus on myself. And therefore, everything becomes interesting, not interested. Interested means that I focus my conversation on the other person, which is what coaches are supposed to do. Whereas for the non-coaching scenario, how many of you realize that there are people who love to constantly talk about themselves? Me, myself, and I. Me, myself, and I. Right? So this is what we call turning conversation towards themselves. No matter what you say, they will find ways to make sure that the conversation can be switch gear from you to me. And then some example is like going to climb Mount Kilimanjaro. Well, you know what? 4 years ago, I've climbed Kilimanjaro. And let me share with you, do you want? Let me share with you some tips how you can climb this mountain successfully. So you see this, just an example. Because they are eager to show you they are better than you. And that's why this conversation turned. So the question is that if you are doing consulting work, this is good. Because you are now sharing your experience and give advice. Yes, you understand the client's scenario. Coaches, on the other hand, can't do that. Because if it is about me, who is the coach on this engagement, what is the essence of coaching when the conversation is about the coach, not the coachee? It doesn't make sense, right? So I hope that you have learned these 8 signs of low EQ. So we are doing well, 1 hour. So we have got, number 1, they always have to be right. Number 2 is they are oblivious to other people's feeling. Number 3 is they behave insensitively. Number 4, they blame others for their problems. Number 5, they have poor coping skills. Number 6, they have emotional outburst. Number 7, they struggle with relationships. And number 8, they turn the conversation towards themselves. These are the signs of low EQ. Question: how can we deal with this situation? What are the means, the resources to raise high EQ or to enhance the EQ? So, coaching clients in Bangkok, we have 2 weeks curriculum on this topic called emotional intelligence. In fact, if you have attended the masterclass Friday morning Singapore time or Thursday afternoon US time zone, you have heard our icon, nurturing icon Mammy Lamney, who is also a director of coaching, how to deal with emotional intelligence. So if you haven't been to the masterclass or you have missed that, please make sure you watch the replay because the replay is up in that private Facebook group. If you don't know what I'm talking about because you are not in the masterclass list, I want you to type masterclass on the chat. I'm happy to give you the link so you can catch up with the other 2 weeks, the final 2 weeks, plus the replay, which are already on the special Facebook group. Not my Facebook group, by the way, it's a special Facebook group. Okay? So I want you to do that because let Mammy to be the solution provider to you, because I'm not the best person when it comes to talking about emotional intelligence. Maybe Something else is good for me, knowledge, personality. But let me just give you some of my take of how you can raise your emotional intelligence. Number one, going back to the definition. The key way of doing things is going back to the definition. So let's just recap what is the definition of emotional intelligence to start with. So emotional intelligence, start with this. Let me just get is the ability to optimize your personal and professional relationships based on these 5 elements. So isn't it true that by understanding the definition, you can work on them? Self-regulation, self-awareness, they come first. Because you must be aware, and then you must regulate. You must have empathy. You must have internal motivation and social skill. How do we do that? Get feedback. When a situation is not working for you, ask yourself this question. What worked? What didn't work? What did I miss? What could I do otherwise? Ask another person for the feedback, because the thing is that you don't see what you don't see, right? So you can ask another person to observe how you do it and give you the feedback. Because learning through another person's feedback is another way of learning. Because if you know, you wouldn't have this problem to start with. So these are the thing about self-awareness. How do you get yourself into awareness mode? You must know what you don't know. And the only thing that I know when it comes to this thing called you don't know, you know what you don't know, is either you make a mistake, okay, or somebody told you make a mistake, and then you learn. Don't say things like I'm sorry. No, I'm sorry is just one thing, but sorry to me doesn't help the scenario, the situation. You've got to ask, what can I learn from this? So be more inquisitive, be more open-minded, be willing to learn from the lesson and adjust. That's first thing about self-regulation, self-awareness and self-regulate. Like the joke that you decide to crack during a funeral, that is not appropriate. Then ask yourself, in that situation, what else can you do? Making no jokes is actually better than cracking a joke, right? So this is what we call self-regulation. How do you regulate yourself? When everyone is in tears, you make sure that you don't want to laugh out loud. When everybody is happy, then you will not be in tears. Like this is called sensory acuity. 2 weeks ago, I talked about one of the pillars of building rapport. If your coachee is not in a good mood, then obviously you don't want to do something that make yourself laugh, but the coachee said you don't care for me. Right? This is called regulation. Regulate your behavior, regulate your emotion. What do I mean by that again? So learn how to be sad. Jack, what do you mean by learn how to be sad? Yeah, I understand. Learn how to be sad. Because when your client is sad, aren't you feeling sad to build rapport with your coachee? When your coachee is happy, is very, very happy. But let's say you're a pessimistic person, it's very hard for you to be happy. Then you need to practice how to be happy. You need to practice how to be angry. Emotion, what I said, is definition based. You can practice. Like get yourself angry. Get yourself to be sad, to feel sad. Get yourself to feel happy. Joyful moment. Because when your coachee is in that particular emotion, what would you do? Now, this is something we call empathy. You put yourself into the shoes of your coachee when your coachee feels sadness. If you don't feel sadness, how do you become empathetic? Okay, so this becomes very important. But there's another thing, like what Winnie said, Winnie agreed with me just now, called overuse of that skill. This is called sympathetic resonance. This is a very big blunder made by inexperienced coaches. Sympathetic resonance means that, let's say the coachee is crying, and all you do as a coach is, don't cry. Like you tap the shoulder of the coachee, don't cry. And then the coachee continues crying and you say, let's not cry. And then suddenly both are crying together. This is called overuse of the emotion. It's what we learn, like in my speaker's training, we say touch and go. You feel with the person. Okay, versus you feel for the person. So which is sympathy, which is empathy? It doesn't matter. Empathy means you feel for the person. You don't feel with the person together and cry together. This is a very advanced skill about coaching. If you are able to feel for the person, not feeling with the person, then you win the game already. That's the second thing about self-regulation. Working on your internal motivation. How do you become more responsible for your life? Okay, coaches, let's talk about this. You must be responsible for your own action. Because if you tell your client to take action and be responsible, remind you that you need to be responsible for your own freaking life, isn't it? So if let's say you blame other people, you blame the whole planet except yourself, then you're not being responsible. Then how do you earn the right to tell or to inform your coachee to be responsible for his or her life? You can't. So intrinsic motivation comes from this particular point. You need to be responsible. But to be able to be responsible for my life, I need to know what exactly I want. What exactly is the reason why I want something. So coaching is about clarity. Clarity by asking questions. Why don't you get somebody coach you? I've just said something very profound. A coach has to have coaches. If your coach doesn't have a coach, run away. If a coach doesn't have a coach, run fast, don't walk. Because what happens is that coaching is a two-way traffic. You can't be responsible for your life alone. You need to have what we call accountability. So coming back to my definition of responsibility and accountability. Responsibility is something that you can do. You can actually swear or declare and take action. But accountability cannot be self-initiated. Accountability is always done by another person. Which is the reason why I said 3 weeks ago. Now you see that whatever topic I have said 2-3 weeks ago now come into making more sense to you. Because I said 3 weeks ago, accountability coaching versus incorporating accountability elements. Some of you may remember that you have been following my Facebook Live. I talked about this 3 weeks ago, that the coaching program should incorporate the elements of accountability, because accountability is something you cannot do it by yourself. It has to be done by other person with you. So if a coach doesn't have a coach, then I know one thing. The person might say that I'm responsible for my life, but I'm not willing to be held accountable. Then my question to you is this: how do you help your coachee to be accountable when you don't believe accountability to start with? Make sense? Then comes to this thing called social skill. Social skill, unfortunately, there's no book. There's nowhere you can read. Okay, there's nowhere you can read. There's no such thing called a book called social skill or social norm. It's a very fantastic word to start with, social norm. But where do you get social norm? How do you know what is social norm? So for example, I'll give you a real life scenario. In school, my son when he was young had this social skill issue. And what happened is that in school, the school rule says that a student cannot poke the other student, because this is called personal touch. Like doing this without the permission is inappropriate. Okay, so this is like social norm. Like you and I would seem to understand this, right? This is like common sense. And you know why I keep saying common sense is not common? It's because what is common sense, by the way? It's not common to my son. My son actually used a ruler to poke the kid in front of him. And the teacher asked, why do you do that? Why do you poke? He said that I cannot use finger to poke. That's why I use a ruler. And this is not against the rule, because your rule doesn't say I cannot use a ruler or any object to do that. This is a real example of my son, by the way, when he was young. This is a classic example of lack of social skill. You may say it's a lack of social skill. The thing is that lack of social skill doesn't mean that it is not it is common sense. It's just that there's lack of social reference. So to train someone in that situation to be more acquainted with different scenarios, different interpretations, and be able to read different cues, the only way out is to provide many scenarios. Yeah, this is how the kids are trained on social skills. I mean, this is my own experience. I see therapists train the special needs this way. Okay, if this is the case, what would you do? So have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? So therefore, this is what you should do in this scenario. Is that we are training they are being trained that way. It's a scenario interpretation and analysis. Unfortunately, this is what the knowledge-based personality is doing, because I need to know what is this scenario about. I need to understand how it works, and I can apply. And once I've applied, I know, okay, I will use this skill set. I will do this in future if this scenario arises again. So therefore, I like in my coaching world to come up with as many scenarios as possible, because I need to learn by multiple scenarios so that I know how to apply. This is the left brain process. I need to incorporate thousands of scenarios. I can recall, I can get this scenario that I experienced before, put it in this scenario, put it there, and then solve it, deal with it. Unfortunately, I don't have the acuity to be able to exercise like what the nurturing does. Naturally, they have this gift. I don't. So I don't mean that coaching is not for the blueprint and knowledge personality. I have to say it one more time. If you are primarily left brains, it doesn't mean you cannot be a coach. It only means that you got to do something. You got to learn. You got to apply. You may have to adopt the way I learn coaching. By number one, practice the definition. Always everything start with definition. Number two is to ask myself what this scenario is about, learn from mistake, and then reflect, then debrief. Most importantly, acquire as many scenarios as early as possible, so that you have seen such thing before, and therefore it will not be weird to you. Okay, so the solution is what I offer personally from my 12 years experience as a coach, as an effective coach coming from the left brain dominant world. And I'm not saying that this solution will work for you. A better way to do it is, of course, like go for masterclass. Mimi Lammy, our nurturing icon, has done a fantastic 1 hour session on emotional intelligence last Friday. And by the way, masterclass is at no cost to you. So if you have not watched the replay, do it. It's there already. And if you have not registered for the masterclass, you can watch and catch up with the replay. And most importantly, you can catch up not just the emotional intelligence. And there's also one thing on the artificial intelligence. Like the coaching clients actually will go through this emotional intelligence and the artificial intelligence in our coaching program in solid 2 weeks. Okay, so this is something that coaching clients will have. And then if you are just attending the masterclass, yes, masterclass is free. Angela, masterclass is free. So if you type masterclass, I'll give you the link to register. Masterclass is actually not free. Our masterclass you can attend at no cost. Let me put it this way: the value of masterclass is actually $1,000. This is what we will be charging in future, because it's a 4 weeks, 90 minutes session. Okay, so I just want to highlight on the artificial intelligence, something that is new for those who want to subscribe. So Angela, I'll give you the link after this. So the next masterclass will be on business intelligence and spiritual intelligence. That will be on this coming Friday, 7 a.m. Singapore time. And if it's too early for you, there's a replay available in the Facebook group. So anything you need to know will be in that link. I want to show you this thing. So since our founder Sherry Tree actually talked about artificial intelligence, I just want to highlight a little bit. So just spend about 10-15 minutes for me to just talk about some of the cool update of artificial intelligence. So once you have signed up with the masterclass, not only you can attend the class for 4 consecutive weeks, catch up with the replay, you'll be able to enjoy this thing called the $1 trial. So Angela, please spend $1. Please spend $1. Okay, Winnie, okay, I'll give you the link as well. So $1, because you need the $1 to subscribe to our lead generation, to be able to enjoy our artificial intelligence. And by the way, for those who are not aware, Codebreaker Technologies, our company, has uploaded a new Chrome extension called the Artificial Intelligence extension, and the link is actually found under codebreakertech.com/Chrome. Okay, you can download this for free. However, you need the $1 subscription to activate the artificial intelligence. Otherwise, it won't work. And what it does is that if let's say you go to LinkedIn, this works currently with LinkedIn profile. So let's say you're researching someone, you don't know whether the person's bank code is, yet you want to find out the bank code of that person. So let's say we talk about Gary Vaynerchuk. Okay, Gary Vaynerchuk has written something on LinkedIn for sure, and what we are looking for is just to crack the code of Gary as fast as we can without talking to him. What we do is that with that plugin, you will see this on LinkedIn, and you can see this on the top right hand corner called click to decode personality. When you have the plugin, it will be there. At the same time, of course, there is a little icon. This is the Chrome extension. This is the one you can use. It was the same. So what you do is that you can click, and then it will link to your artificial intelligence. And then what happens is that Gary V's detail, the bank code, and then you can actually save it under your contact list. So you can immediately create a lead of this person and put it under your virtual office. So when you subscribe to our band pass and artificial intelligence, you will immediately have access to your virtual office, where you can have a list of the people, contact information, and the bank code, and you can walk away with the lead for free, because it doesn't cost you any more money. It's $1. $1 trial for 30 days. After 30 days, if you find that it's not for you, then all you need to do is just to cancel the subscription, and that's it. You can keep the leads that you have generated so far. So this is one thing I want to talk about. And one thing I also want to talk about, which is quite cool, is like, how many of you would love to analyze politicians' messages? Like Sherry did that in the last masterclass to analyze DJT, the Donald Trump and his competitor, his counterpart Joe Biden. Okay, so she did that in the masterclass. I shall not do it, because I want to go to the masterclass and see how she used the artificial intelligence to analyze the bank code of these speeches. What I want to show you is, because we are from Singapore, so I want to do something a bit crazy. We just finished celebrating our National Day. Okay, so this is Lee Hsien Loong, our Prime Minister's National Day message. So I want to understand the bank code, like the bank code analysis of this message. What can I do? So all I need to do is I can go to the message, copy and paste the whole thing of not more than 25,000 words as far as I know. I just need to copy this, and I go to my AI and see what I've got. Okay, so on my AI, and all I need to do is to do this called paste it. And once I paste it, what happens is that I would be, let me just move the box a little bit. Okay, and then what happens is that I will come to this decode and just see 1, 2, 3. I press the decode, and if it works well, you'll see that the code is up. In just very short while, the code is up. It is NABK. So Lee Hsien Loong, our Prime Minister, crafted this message with very, very high nurturing. And if you are nurturing personality dominant, you will feel absolutely good. This message resonates with the nurturing very well. is what this Banco analysis is about based on artificial intelligence. However, the problem of this message does not resonate with me because the knowledge personality is on the lowest side. So it means that even though you are writing a message, you want to connect with different personalities. How you can do it is that you can actually finish writing a message and plug it on AI, and you can see that which code are you talking to the most and which code you are not really talking to. Like in this case, it's very clear cut that nurturing is very high. Okay, this is talking to the nurturing very effectively. However, it is on the low K, low A, and low B. So what can you do to improve this message? Imagine you are crafting the message for our PM. You need to incorporate certain elements of knowledge, of blueprint, of action. Then you are now able to connect with all four personality. So there's a saying about copywriting. The formula we use is called power scripting, which is on the AI. It's something like this. You need to connect the person at the heart and the brain. You need to connect with the audience at the heart level and the brain level. Okay, so which means that you need to connect with them in all four codes. So that is the power scripting formula. So in artificial intelligence, you have a chance to learn this power scripting formula. A good copywriter may not be a good power scripter. I always say this because a copywriter may not know Banco, may not know power scripting. So what happens is that the person may be a very good person in terms of, I would say, perhaps knowing how to connect with one or two code, but when it comes to connecting with other people, that may be a problem. Okay, so I just want to highlight that. And then you can be a very normal copywriter, yet if you learn how to do power scripting, you can be a very effective communicator. Power scripting is not copywriting. Let me just put it this way. A good copywriter, I know that some copywriters, because they are primarily action personality based, so their copies are connecting with very well the action personality, but it doesn't touch me. That's the problem. Okay, but when you learn how to do power scripting, you are able to connect with different personalities, and that's make you very effective communicator as a result. Leverage technology, and this is something that is at Codebreaker Technology we are very proud of. Why? Because we are not a training company. I know that there are people who replicate or copy our card system, and they build their own card. I've said this literally since 2016 in Singapore. I know personally there are people out there who create their own cards and create their own program and they train. I was very upset with this, like some of my friends who did it today, saying that the world is copying other people's work is unfair. I came to this space of 2020 to say that I don't really care how other people copy these cards. But you can change them into 4 different colors. You can call them something else, the dots, the cats, whatever you call it. But one thing they cannot replicate from us is the technology. They cannot spend millions of dollars to invest in the technology where we have. That makes us different from other people who are using the cards because they are training. They're doing education and training. We are teaching our clients to use technology, and no one else can do that except us. So therefore, if someone is using these 4 cards, using another color or different schemes or call them differently, I don't really care. They can train, but they will only remain as training. And the clients will not be able to do what we do because our clients are able to leverage on the technology and become more powerful. That's why Banco Codebreaker Technology is not a training and education company. It's a technology company. We are so proud of ourselves to be able to be who we are today because of that. Okay, so you see the low EQ part of me comes in. I turn the conversation into me, myself, and us, but I'm not going to do this. Okay, so let's end with this Facebook Live. So what I will do is that for Clement, for Winnie, for Angela, I will give you the link after this Facebook Live. Please register. So listen to my instruction. If your K is on the lower side, because a lot of people, about 8 people out of 10 don't pay attention to these details. 1, register, you get the Zoom link. 2, pay $1, you get the band pass and artificial intelligence. In the Facebook group, there are trainings of how to use the band pass and AI. There are trainings already, 2.5 hours of training there already. Okay, so please pay attention. Number 3, join the Facebook group. Not my Facebook group, not mine. So some of you are in my Facebook group, not mine. There is a special Facebook group on page 3 of the registration. Pay attention to this. So 2 things, $1 and join the special Facebook group, and then you'll be able to watch the replay, you'll be able to watch the demo replay and the actual class replay. Okay? I know a lot of you actually may have seen the link, it's just that you're not aware. My point is that the masterclass is no charge right now. In future, like I said, it's going to be $1,000 US. So if it is no charge right now, then why not do it? Why not you do it now? Right? So that's all I have for you guys. So I want all of you to take note that this is my weekly community service at 9 p.m. Singapore time or 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time for Deborah, and for some of our West Coast Americans is 6 a.m. their time on Sunday. And share with me one biggest takeaway. As usual, this is my request at the end of the Facebook Live. Share with me one biggest takeaway you have from this 1 hour and 25 minutes. Okay, and if you're watching replay, hashtag replay, and then again share with me one biggest takeaway. So whether you watch live or watch replay, doesn't matter. Share with me one biggest takeaway from this Facebook Live. And just take note that on Tuesday, 12 p.m. Singapore Malaysian time, this Facebook Live will be taken down. So if you want to catch up with the replay, make sure you spare 1.5 hours before 12 o'clock on Tuesday. I've got friends who actually watched halfway and the Facebook Live was taking off. It happened 3 weeks ago. So please make sure that 12 p.m. Tuesday is the day where I'll take it down. So make sure you watch the replay before that. Okay? So with that completes my Facebook Live for today, and I look forward to seeing you again in our next Facebook Live. So any questions about coaching, if you like, you can ask here. I may adopt some of the questions for my next week's Facebook Live topic. Who knows? Alright, with that, Jack Wong here signing off. Happy Sunday night to those people in Asia, and happy Sunday morning to our friends from North America. All good wishes. I'll see you next Sunday night. Bye bye.